North Korean troops have been sent to Russia.
Putin has gone tin-cupping to get weapons from the DPRK and Iran. Turning to a pariah state like North Korea for troops just underscores how much trouble he is in.
North Korean military units have been deployed to the Kursk region.
The North Koreans have not been in a fight since 1953, so there is no living soldier in North Korea that has ever fired a rifle in anger. And getting any sort of information on how they might perform in real-world circumstances would be an intelligence bonanza. Of course, it goes both ways. The North Koreans haven't been in a fight, so being able to see a front line, even if they're not major combatants, is something that they could use for training purposes.
The deployment of North Korean troops to Kursk is also a sign of Putin's growing desperation.
Thousands of young soldiers from North Korea have been sent to Russia to help fight against Ukraine.
But for the point of view of the United States and South Korea, this is going to be the best bit of information we've ever had in the last 70 years that will allow us to remap our war plans for the Korean Peninsula should anything go wrong. Having a more accurate view of your enemy is always the first step.
We're closely tracking the unprecedented level of direct military cooperation between Russia and the DPRK.
This may not end well, as they have no combat experience, will likely be dropped onto the most ferocious battlefields, no familiarity with the terrain, and
the evidence now suggests that North Korea has sent around 10,000 soldiers to train in eastern Russia.
North Korea is not the only country that is providing foreign assistance to the Russians. Specifically, they're providing ballistic missiles and artillery shells to the degree that maybe half of the artillery shells that have been used in Ukraine by the Russians this year are from North Korea. I mean, they're crap. Probably half of them don't work, and they've been blowing up more Russian artillery tubes than Ukrainian artillery tubes because sometimes they blow up too soon. Anyway, they're not the only ones. The Iranians are also involved with the Shahed drones, which 1,000 have been used at this point. Now, just as in with the North Korean situation, there's an intelligence bonanza to be had here, or a way to get information on the inside of the system.
And I am increasingly concerned that the Kremlin plans to use these North Korean soldiers to support Russia's combat operations in Russia's Kursk region, near the border with Ukraine. And let me remind you that Russia signed onto the UN Security Council resolutions agreeing not to provide military assistance to North Korea. Of course, we know that Putin has gone tin-cupping to get weapons from the DPRK and Iran.
North Korea and Iran are not countries that I would mention as technological leaders, and the fact that the Russians need them for half of their artillery shells and a substantial percentage of their drone warfare, that bodes really, really badly for the Russians' ability to maintain this war long term. We already know that they'll only be able to make a double digits number of new tanks a year. They're just really refurbishing their old ones. And if the technical skills within the military-industrial complex of Russia are down to the degree that they're this dependent on two fourth-string countries, that would suggest as we move forward they're going to become wholly dependent upon imports of weapons. Well, that provides other opportunities for countries to choke the Russian war machine, because if the vulnerability isn't in Siberia, if it's in, say, Isfahan, that's a lot easier to get to, especially if you've got countries like South Korea or Israel who are now involved, which brings us to the fourth and final thing. South Korea and Israel are now involved. There's a diplomatic angle here as well as a strategic angle you have to consider. Both of these countries have been desperate to avoid Ukraine's entreaties and the United States' requests to get involved in the conflict in any meaningful way because they've got bigger security issues closer to home that focus wholly on them, and they didn't want the Russians stirring the pot in their own backyards. Well, now the Russians are stirring the pot in their own backyard, so they are involved, and so we're seeing the political restrictions loosen in both Jerusalem and Seoul, and that can have a lot more impact than simply providing the Ukrainians with some technical help and some weapon systems. South Korea is one of the world's 5 biggest arms exporters and produces regularly things like artillery and rocket system and tanks that are not too far behind what comes out of Germany or France or the United States, but at a significantly lower price point. In fact, they've already signed a deal to provide the Poles with over 1,000 tanks and assorted systems. Providing that sort of assistance to Ukraine is obviously a no-brainer, but when you look at a country like Israel that has under 10 million people and is in kind of a tough neighborhood, mass-producing hardware quickly is something they cannot do, but the South Koreans can. And to flip the equation, the Israelis are the world leader, or a world leader, in anti-missile technologies, and by far have the world's best anti-artillery and anti-rocket technology in their Iron Dome system. Well, on day one of any theoretical Korean war, the North Koreans are going to be lobbing all kinds of ammo into downtown Seoul. So if Israel can help out Korea with artillery and rocket defense, cooperation between these two countries changes the strategic calculus of both of them in a very positive way. And if you can take Israel's technical acumen on some specific weapon systems and marry it to Korea's ability to produce a lot of things very quickly, you can actually see that working out through the entire Western alliance system.
Over 600,000 Russian soldiers have been killed or wounded in Putin's war, and he is unable to sustain his assault on Ukraine without foreign support.
We urge the Kremlin to change course. We fully understand the security implications for both Europe and the Indo-Pacific.
The deployment of North Korean troops represents one, a significant escalation in the DPRK's ongoing involvement in Russia's illegal war. Two, yet another breach of UN Security Council resolutions. And three, a dangerous expansion of Russia's war.
Putin will not prevail in Ukraine, even with more help from North Korea.
NATO calls on Russia and the DPRK to cease these actions immediately. The deepening military cooperation between Russia and North Korea is a threat to both the Indo-Pacific and Euro-Atlantic security. It undermines peace on the Korean peninsula and fuels the Russian war against Ukraine. Pyongyang has already supplied Russia with millions of rounds of ammunition and ballistic missiles that are fueling a major conflict in the heart of Europe and undermining global peace and security. In exchange, Putin is providing North Korea with military technology and other support to circumvent international sanctions. This underlines the importance of democracies standing together to uphold our values and to face our shared security challenges. This is because the Ukrainians are fighting back with courage, resilience, and ingenuity. NATO allies will continue to support a free and democratic Ukraine, because Ukraine's security is our security.
North Korea's troop deployment marks a serious escalation of the almost 3-year war. North Korea already has its own security headache, a standoff with the United States and South Korea over its nuclear program. Large North Korean troop casualties would be a major political blow for the country's 40-year-old ruler, Kim Jong-un, whose government hasn't formally confirmed the deployment. But experts say Kim may see this as a way to get much-needed foreign currency and security support from Russia in return for joining Russia's war against Ukraine. Kim Jong-un is taking a big gamble. If there are no large casualty numbers, he will get what he wants to some extent. But things will change a lot if many of his soldiers die in battle. The Storm Corps, also known as the 11th Corps, is one of Kim's top units. Its main missions would be infiltrating agents into South Korea, blowing up important facilities in the south, and assassinating key figures in the event of war. On the Korean peninsula, the Storm Corps unit receives better food and supplies than other units, but many members still suffered from malnutrition and tuberculosis. Despite a gradual economic recovery in North Korea over the past 30 years, defectors say the average monthly wage for ordinary North Korean workers and soldiers is less than $1. Many people engage in capitalist market activities to make a living because the country's state rationing system remains largely broken. Russia is expected to pay all the costs related to the deployment of North Korean troops, including their wages, which observers estimate will be at least $2,000 per month for each person. About 90% to 95% of their stipends will likely go to Kim's coffers and the rest to the soldiers. This means 1 year of service in Russia would earn a North Korean soldier $1,200 to $2,400. That's big enough to prompt many young soldiers to volunteer for risky Russian tours. North Korea will likely offer other incentives meant to elevate the social standings of soldiers, such as membership in the ruling Workers' Party and the right to move to Pyongyang, the country's showcase capital. Family members of soldiers sent to Russia could be given benefits such as good houses or entrance to good universities. North Koreans are barred from accessing foreign news and need state approval to move from one province to another within the country. North Korean construction, logging, and other workers sent abroad to bring in foreign currency have often been called slaves by international human rights groups, but defectors testify that such overseas jobs are often better than staying in North Korea, and many use bribery and family connections to get them. North Korea will continue to hide its troop dispatches from its own people because the public will be agitated if they know their soldiers are being sent abroad to be killed